Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. We're always doing this live, so if this is confusing to you, if you're watching on Twitch, then I apologize. We skipped the recap yesterday because I was so busy talking to Whip, and we covered so many different topics. I talked to Whip for like hours on hours, and then I kind of lost the connectivity to the games. I did mention that I believe that PSG and GG are going to be in the finals, so that was some level of prediction. But all in all, we say goodbye to our Latin American team and also our Brazilian team. We started with WILDCARDS, was R7. I think, Draven, Silas, Zaya, Ban, Silas, and Miru had a good performance on the champion. I think Miru was definitely the highlight player, I think, of R7. I think that he did very well a couple of games, but in this particular matchup, I think that Gory just had his number. You have the Vi first pick, and I think in this spot here, like they removed the Tristana, but I think the Vi first pick here is so powerful when Zaya's out of the picture. And I think that these bans are kind of odd to me. It's like the Rumble game is something that has happened. I don't know if there's a stronger rumor about WILDCARDS Rumble or something, but it's a champion that happened, I believe, like once during playoffs in LCS. Maybe someone can share in, you can share in the comments below if this is something that you guys know that maybe Gory or also maybe Licorice is playing. Zeri Rakan, I feel like this is where things are so misguided. It's like they pick Zeri Rakan because they want to keep third spots open for the Ahri blind that is going to usually happen when enemy showing Vi. I think that currently I don't see Zeri being a strong AD carry in situations where you can't pick Lulu or don't want to pick Lulu. I think the teams should completely stay away. I think should just match Zeri with Lulu, and if there's no Lulu, I feel like the payoff for having Zeri on your team, it just never happens. Zeri can struggle against itemizations, she can struggle against compositions, she can struggle with pacing in the game because she's so ult reliant, and I think that Jinx and Aphelios currently just keep up way better. I think the caveat is though that Zeri can be paired with Lulu, and that could be a powerful lane in some matchups, but currently, like today, we saw a lot of Zeri Rakan combos being picked. What would I prefer in this case? I think that you just lock your jungler, and then you pick together Jinx and then Lissandra on 3. Very similar draft structures to what we saw in the past. Ideally, what I would want to see here is like Jinx, Cannon, and then pick mid on 3 or match on 3, right? Very strange here to not see Cannon locked in, but Golden Guardians get a Dream 1, 2, 3, and also the opposition is not really picking something strong bot that doesn't have a lot of options to lane into. You pick Zeri Rakan, and dropping against that is super easy because Zeri Rakan is a very weak lane. And we continue. Jinx, Lucian are the bans that are targeted. I think Aphelios is probably the better ban of a Lucian here because Lucian Nami in this comp I think would have been a lot weaker. I think in situations where the enemy team has a lot of magic damage in their kit, like Kennen, Annie and Ahri here, I think just picking Sound is better than Malphite. I think that Malphite really benefits from buying armor, and I think this is one of those cases where that additional value makes him weaker. I would even go so far to say that Ornn is better here, but all in all, the fact that GG get Vi, a clean Vi when the enemy locks in Zeri, they get Cannon on 2-3. Usually like teams feel the need to choose here between Vi or Cannon. This is what the trade-off is, and I thought this is R7's plan, but it turns out it isn't. And jumping into the game, I think just the timing gank on mid was a game changer. You look at the timing gank here, we see the flash over the wall, the blind spot on the even wave, gorgeous. And then the follow-up as well here, Odi being pushed out and then Miru TPing back. And here, this is where the real disaster really hits. Like Miru spots Huhi here on the ward, of course, that is getting cleared. And then Gory just pushes forward, and Huhi takes his time because he doesn't need to be on bot wave, and then eventually they get a kill here, and Miru just needed to give up this wave and wait for additional information. The issue is, Aphelios is not really being pressured by the Zeri and the Rakan, and Miru dies after TPing back, which is an utter disaster. On top of that, we have a Bong here playing Comet. Just playing Comet against Cannon feels pretty bad because what's going to happen is that Cannon will dodge the comet, and the comet will do no damage. That's why we see a lot of Ari, and Ari can proc a couple of times and an all-in, and this is just a sign of a player that doesn't understand the Cannon Malphite matchup so well. I still think Sion would have been a better option. I will continue. I think that this was just a Golden Guardians masterclass. I feel like when they're ahead, they're very, very good at being aware of objectives, and I think that they are very, very good at pulling the trigger together as a group. They pressure top off, and they manage to secure the Herald and trade for the Drake. So at least the Drake is going to allow them to delay the game a little bit. But this kill into top side with the Rift Herald being broken, Cannon will be able to participate in any fight that occurs. Licorice after this push wave. It just creates a circumstance where Cannon will base now for Hextech Protobelt, and that's why he's sticking around. So any fight that Cannon wants to participate in, he will be able to via his monster fed, and Zeri and Rakan will not have any payoff in this game. Especially because Aphelios, he started Cole, and Annie used a lot of her power, ganking mid and killing mid, and these conditions are just incredibly hard to operate under. You see that also Aphelios is a champion that doesn't necessarily need boots, while Zeri really likes her boots because of the move speed, and here we have a window where there's a plain and simple mythic advantage. We'll continue forward, but the majority of this game, it's like if you're behind and you're not on even footing, Malphite, even though you're playing against Aphelios, it's like you need to pay such a big price in order to burn his flash, and that part of it is rough. And I mentioned before on stream, the itemization that Malphite has been forced into just feels so horrible in this one. I usually want to be the one with the Sunfire Cape and so forth, and you would really enjoy your time. Sometimes you get to the point as well where, sure, the enemy can maybe throw all, the kitchen sink on your Aphelios and kill him, but you are so reliant on what your AD can do and the resets of Lissandra in terms of a passive to dominate the fight. It's like even if you throw everything to kill Aphelios, there's just everyone else in the game is just too far ahead of the curve for it to actually matter. Golden Guardians close out well. They have a couple of mistakes here and there. This was just an attempt here. Pong just tried to fight because the enemy is knocking on the Nexus, and it turned into a big disaster. There is not really much to do in this game. Boom. But it's like, 6A chilling, Cannon, the carpet is just destroying, and even though they throw everything at 6A, he survives. All is good. We move on to game number 2. Golden Guardians vs R7. Back on the blue side, R7 chose red. I don't know who chose in the first game. I believe it was a coin flip, but I didn't hear the information of who chose, if you're curious. Driven Silas Zaya, same exact bans, but here they change up the Tristana and then they ban the Vi. K'Sante gets first picked, which is interesting, but is also something that Bong played a lot. We know that K'Sante is something that can be flexed, especially if you're willing to pick Lucian Nami like this. Nami provides a lot of magic damage. It pretty much makes, the damage output of Lucian, it's like 30% magic damage, which is a very, it's pretty decent. It's definitely a big deal. Aphelios gets locked in, and Maokai. We've seen these Aphelios Lulu trades into Lucian Nami in the past. This is something that we saw specifically JDG versus T1 at Worlds last year, right? I think this is a very, very, explosive lane. If something goes wrong and in that direction, definitely it becomes very volatile, and you begin to snowball the game really hard because of how much gold you can generate on support is probably the biggest outlier, because Lulu really needs Chirelia, and Nami, of course, with Mandate, is going to just completely smurf as per usual. Olaf gets banned, Gwen, Nidalee Gragas, they're just banning the AP junglers because they think that K'Sante Flex is a thing, and of course this is something that Gori has played and we've seen it globally, so it's not completely crazy. They pick Jace on 4, it's a combo together with the Maokai, and they're going to flex Jace into a 5 pick to see where they want to send it. Here Nocturne gets locked in. I was surprised by the Nocturne here. It's like Nocturne has some synergy with Lucian Nami, but I thought that in this spot that Jarvan looks pretty damn good. If enemy shows Jace, Lulu, Aphelios, Maokai, I think this is one of those situations where picking Jarvan can be very strong. Jarvan Syndra, as an example, I think would have been a very powerful rotation, but this is perfectly fine too. I just think that, They stuck to preference. I just don't think I don't see how Nocturne is happy to play into Lulu, Maokai, and not seeing the 5th pick of the opposition. You know. All in all, Malphite gets picked here again, and you know, this is slightly better, right? Because the enemy has an AD jungler, Lucian, and K'Sante, so you can actually itemize armor, but it's still not that optimal. At least you have some level of engage against Talia. This is definitely a better Malphite game than the previous one. Looking at the gameplay, I think, you know, the key thing that occurred in this game is just Gory having so much pressure on mid, he is hitting dry W's, Licorice collecting platings. They managed to find like a gank on Malphite. That's a key element of having a winning matchup. It's not necessarily that you're going to punish the enemy. It's more, well, you can punish the enemy, but it comes from being stronger allows you to manage the wave. And in a matchup like Malphite versus K'Sante, K'Sante can choose to push 2, and then Malphite bouncing, and then K'Sante can fight back and make sure that Malphite doesn't crash, and then he's going to be in a position where he's going to be in danger against enemy jungle. You know, this is what it means to have a stronger matchup, is that you can adjust your play according to both junglers on your own volition, you know? You can control the wave state. That is what it means to be stronger. In contested lanes, you know, then it's like back and forth, and having a bigger wave makes you stronger, and then, you know, there's skill at play. But this is a good example of, you know, K'Sante being so good into Malphite. I don't know how Malphite can, you know, save himself from the gank that occurred, but it is what it is. Lulu died to a level 2 timer. Just a dry level 2 here into Flash. Like, as mentioned before, you know, both lanes have traded down to 1 HP, but I think R7 didn't play too good. But a very important detail that I wanted to add is just that Talia showed up here and contested the bushes together. You know, Talia just showed up and they pushed him out, because usually here Lulu wants to be in this bush, but they were a little bit too early, which allowed Talia to actually make this maneuver. We continue. She burned the heal of Lulu, and as mentioned before, all advantages matter. We fast forward. This was a pretty neat gank, I'd say, from the Maokai. He was ulting over the wall and then flashing, and this is a pocket that, you know, the Maokai ult will remain hidden for a very long time. We've seen Peanut do this exact same gank, but I liked it. I think Golden Guardians could take it a little bit easier and play more in line with what Nocturne wants to do. Also here, I think this was a pretty decent timing to also base if you wanted to look for it, because it did crash the wave and all was good. So definitely not a necessary death by any means. Very strange setup here. You know, these are the things that make me worried for Golden Guardians when it comes to their play against, you know, any team that is in the best of fives later on. I believe that their play around lanes, especially around bot, is going to be very problematic. And I think when they don't get away with having advantages, they won't be able to enact their strengths. Very similar to the matchup we saw against Bilibili. They can be cheeky, and I think that they, you know, have some drafts in their pockets that can definitely give them, you know, comeback potential that can, you know, shock you like cold water. But execution like this is a little bit concerning. Yeah. I would much rather have the gameplay revolve around pressuring the Jace, and then if Jace is respecting because he had no flash, cross into topside river and hover together with Talia and Nocturne, and then instead of looking and baiting for the gank, give Lucian Nami the space to pressure forward and harass the enemy into the turret until you get to the point where you dive. I believe eventually we get to the point that that's the occurrence, as you can see here. You know, this is the execution that we wanted to look for, but sometimes the mistake of not doing that right away and recognizing that right away can be everything that decides the game against tougher opposition. We continue. The rest of the game was relatively one-sided. You know, I think first item BT is definitely something that's kind of rough on this patch. I understand why he wants it. But I mentioned before, you know, Lulu not being on Mythic, buying boots, buying pinks when she didn't finish Mythic is very problematic. You need to finish Mythic, you need to go boots and runes and take it easy. You know, I liked, you know, Golden Guardians' confidence when it comes to the decision making. They punish dives super well. I like that a lot. I think that this is definitely one of the strengths, how committed they are to their decisions as a group, which might sound silly, but it definitely is a characteristic that should be valued when you evaluate teams. Okay. The rest of the game is pretty one-sided. Licorice definitely played well. Very well. Big top gap. As we say goodbye to R7, I would like to highlight, I think Meru was a very strong player. I think that R7 have a long way to go for me to imagine them qualifying to the main event. I think that Bong needs to definitely practice how he fights when he's playing these tanky champions, because he needs to be a lot more aware of his mid laner and his AD carry, because in a lot of these games he was pushing forward when it wasn't necessary, and I think that the way R7 locked in Malphite twice today was kind of, you know, putting him at a disadvantage, I'd say, as well. We'll talk more about Golden Guardians as we make the prediction between Golden Guardians and PSG. PSG, Game 1, Olaf, Maokai, Zaya, Lucian, Vi, Nautilus. They first pick Aphelios, which makes perfect sense. Wako and Root are probably the two strongest Aphelios players that we saw in group stage. Keep in mind, G2 didn't play it, and Stixay and Huhi haven't had the best lane phases.
Roloff 033 donated $5. Hey Yamato, I know you are a professional coach. I am a gold player. I have been playing for approximately 1 year.
Elk is a G, yeah. I forgot about Elk. I didn't put Elk in the same box as these homies. Forgive me, Elk.
And how
Sorry.
do you reset your mental?
How do you reset your mental of the hard game? Well, take a break. You know, you never want to carry the luggage of a past game into a fresh game, because they have nothing to do with each other. You know, these lose streak, win streak things, you know, these are just coping mechanisms. But at the same time, you're just connecting games and connecting dots that you are adding yourself. Any game state that you're in is not connected to anything. That is the best way to approach things, because even within a game, a lot of players tend to put themselves in a position where the actions and the impact of the past impacts your play in the future. It's very important to be, you know, tuned into the information that actually matters in the game. It doesn't matter that you bot lane entered. What matters is the fact that the enemy AD is ahead, and you need to play around it and leverage that information for your benefit. And the same thing applies in everything. You know, if you begin to connect the past to the present, your future will no longer be in your control. So you need to make sure that you let go. And how do you do that? Depends on you. Maybe you take a break. Maybe you do something else. Maybe you do a breathing exercise. There's definitely ways for you to start over. But the main thing, the most important thing, is to be aware of yourself and be honest with yourself. That is the most important thing. I'm a good player. I've been playing for 1 year. In your opinion, is worth by coaching? That's up to you to decide, right? There's a lot of good information that is available out there for free, and you know, if you know, I cannot speak to your financial situation or what is good for you specifically, because for some people, you know, my price tag right now, I've raised it to $150 for 2 hours, up to 3 hours of work, right? And $150 can be life-changing for someone, right? If someone is making $200,000 a year and they want to improve league and they want to, you know, have a good experience that they can share with their friends, then this could be a wonderful investment. But if for some people $150 could be the difference between surviving this week in terms of food, and it depends on where you are globally and so forth, you know, there's a lot of questions at hand that I can't really, you know, attribute or answer. Will it be worth it in terms of your own personal growth? Yeah, I would say yes. There will be ways to make your growth more efficient, if that's your question. Thank you for the $5. A PSG first pick Aphelios. So it was very obvious coming into this match that this is going to be the plan, right? Especially with Lucian out, I think it really invites the Aphelios first pick. Aphelios gets first pick, and once again, same thing as the previous game. Like, you're not willing to play Cannon yourself, so, you know, it's kind of a joke, you know? You pick Zeri Wukong, very surprised that Jinx doesn't get picked once again. I thought, okay, the big Zeri, they're going to go Lulu on 3, and then they can ban counters to Lulu and have a good time. But instead, you know, Cannon Trash gets picked and Rakan Zeri gets picked again. This is just a turbo weak lane. You concede so many parts of the game playing this. You just concede the early game. You let the decision making be in the hands of your opposition. I don't like it at all. I think it's very bad. Viego Kindred gets banned, AD junglers, perfectly fine. Junja plays both, and he's very good at them. Ari, Malphite gets banned, and you know, this is just highlighting that you know, blue side is looking to play the Tristana, right? They wanted to play Tristana. Maybe if Ari is out, they might just pick maybe Jace. Maybe this is the angle, and they pick Sejuani. I think here Sejuani is very strange. I would much rather want to see a Gragunia. I think Gragas jungle is... I think Gragas is just OP. So, me sounding like a one-string banjo, bang, 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 bang. I make the same noise over and over again, but, you know, until it happens, I will not stop ringing that Gragas bell. Kazuki gets picked on 5. So I knew right away that Ryze is going to go into Cannon, because no one blind picks Ryze mid, and Ryze is something that is historically picked into Cannon, but you need to play it good. If you play it bad, then you are solo losing the game for your team, naturally, right? Because if you're behind into Cannon, you're going to get solo killed by Cannon, you're going to get dove, you're going to have a really, really bad time. And this game was a terrible performance by Robo. It started off right, it's like even level 1, like he just loses the lane level 1 completely. He stands in bush. I was very surprised as well that he started Doran's Ring. It's like starting Doran's Ring, I think probably isn't the greatest. It should be fine, but I would probably prefer Corrupting Potion. The key thing here, right, is that level 1, I think that Cannon has some angles, but you basically play on the wave, and then you play around your own your personal phase rush, and then you take it easy. This was a very terrible trade, and then Cannon is going to hit the wave and try to hit level 2 first, and you basically want to chip away at his HP pool as much as possible. And then when you bounce and you begin to hit like level 3, you're going to be able to poke him for free, trade for free, and play on the wave. You have a strong atomization topside. You know, there is a lot of counterplay for you to play outside of the sphere of influence of Cannon. But just level 1 is definitely like a you know, situation where you can fight back with Cannon. Here, Cannon misuses E, in my opinion. I think he should have kept his E and so just hit the wave instead of hitting the Ryze. Then hit level 2 and then press forward with the E on his level 2 timer. Junja walking for the Wukong. This was a clever pathing from Croc. You know, we like here, Croc skipped all of his camps and ended up on red, and Junja thought that he's going to be on time here to invade the red. He gets chunked instead, he uses flash. I wonder if this is a circumstance where if Croc W is better, because like if Croc W is the second damage of W, I think it just wins. So this was very absurd. Like he's playing Conqueror against the Sejuani, right? He's playing Conqueror and he has passive, and a lot of the damage the Sejuani does is physical. This is very weird by Croc, you know? I think Croc needs to, you know, fight back here. Like if he W's the W, he just wins. And Cannon has nowhere to be found. Cannon was on the wave, Tristana was on the wave. Like he had full information. It's like, it's not like Tristana's gonna teleport there. Like we see Tristana right now on the minimap. She's not gonna teleport to this situation. So Croc is just... I was about to make a terrible joke, but I just didn't do it. If you know, then you know. I was about to say that you should rename to Croc. Terrible joke. I'm gonna move on. Now after the Wukong got pushed out, he based and went bot side with a ruby crystal. So it's like the Sejuani just took the crab and then went top side. This is already a Rise that has TP'd back. So it's like Rise bases now and TP's back in a very bad wave state, right? We continue. Ozzy is crashing the wave. And now the game is over. It's just lost. I'm not even kidding. Eesh. I was happy to see a little Rise, a little mage action, but it requires a lot of finesse. It requires a lot of finesse because now for the rest of the game, you're going to be a liability. Here at PSG, I think one thing that we can highlight, which is going to be important, is that I think they did a very poor job of converting winning positions. Like, for example, here, Croc just straight up died because he's pushing forward. Like, my man W'd over the wall. Like, what on earth is that, Croc? That is crazy. That is straight up insanity, man. Insanity. Insanity, man. Craziness. I couldn't believe it when I saw this on my screen. My man just jumps over the screen. It's like here, Loud managed to stabilize the game. They stopped the bleeding and they managed to farm on very well. And then here, Chemtech Soul and Chemtech Map was rolled. So even if PSG managed to get the Chemtech Soul, they can delay the game and maybe there's some potential to find some comebacks. Looking at itemization, they've managed to recover well. It's like we have Seraphs fully stacked. Road of Ages is going to pop. The Mercs are coming in against the Cannon and the Seju. There's some potential here. And then Croc kind of makes it easy. But then again, PSG choose not to engage in a Nash situation. You still have Cannon ult with Flash. You still have all of your tools besides Seju ult. And I think that this is a moment where you need to press forward. But instead, they take it easy. I still think, this is a moment where you can press Nash and you can make the enemy face check into you. And as they face check into you, Seju ult into hook, and then you have a good time, right? You've pressed all the way, the mid wave, all the way, and you can find advantages here in these spots. But PSG looked very stiff in their approach to the game. Because keep in mind here, PSG they denied all the vision around Nash. These guys are sweating, very, very much so. Seos went a little bit too far. I don't know what the fuck he was looking for. He wanted to ward, but PSG was covering this area very well. Here as well, maybe you could leverage into Nash. You don't have the best Aphelios weapons for it, so I didn't mind this one as much, especially because Drake is also spawning, so you can take it easy. But this is something I wanted to highlight in terms of PSG. In terms of how they convert later on, it's not as clean and precise as Golden Guardians, and I think that's going to be a potential weakness. At least this time when they killed Croc, they looked for Nash. Smooth sailing for the rest of the game. I feel like Zeri here with Navori is very underwhelming, and also without the Lulu, very underwhelming. Rise was too weak in this game, and Seju had a very easy time itemizing. All in all, PSG just showed that they are the better players, right? This is, I think, just you managed to give Wako Aphelios, I think big mistake. And then Junja just playing really, really well and outplaying Croc. But also Croc had opportunities to punish, but he just didn't do it. Like Croc did a good pathing, he had red and blue, and then he just fought very bad against Seju. Abandoned Rise, and Rise fucked his own lane phase, and then he got dove, Looking at the second game, somehow Loud go on blue and they give up Aphelios again. They give up Aphelios again to first pick Nautilus. Okay, first pick Nautilus. Maybe your idea is to put it mid and, set up your jungler for success somehow, but nothing. PSG slam Aphelios trash. They pick K'Sante on 3 because they want to keep K'Sante flex to send it into Nautilus. And maybe that's why they chose to go with a different mid laner here. But it's like, once again, Zeri without Lulu. Syndra Sylas gets banned for 5. They pick Maul fight into K'Sante showing and Annie. And Nautilus, Zeri, like a Nautilus Zeri against Aphelios Trash is so damn bad. It's terrible. It's so shit. And in my mind, I think if you play against PSG, you know they're going to pick Aphelios no matter what. So just don't spend bans on bot if you're going to give them Aphelios. And the fact that you are blue side and you're banning Vi, Cannon, the most first pick champions of the tournament, just shows that you've run out of gas. You're in big trouble. I'm not a super big fan of Kindred, honestly. I feel like she's a win more champ. And every time I get told a story about how, Kindred is this amazing champion that can snowball games. I feel like usually the games that she does snowball are games where most junglers would snowball if they play good. But Kindred does have a very strong ultimate, and I think that she's very strong into very certain compositions, and I think that's where she can shine, and she brings a level of consistency, but she needs to find so many marks in games where she is a weaker pick for her to work. Because already here, right, she's playing Kindred against Nautilus and Annie, and those are champions that can pressure her from the first time she gets CC'd to press R. Right, and I think that's where things get dangerous because she's relatively short range unless she has a lot of marks. Here, Galio gets picked to support her, and K'Sante is fine. I think when you have trash support showing, this is a very AD heavy composition. Malphite gets picked, and that's perfectly fine, in terms of what is showing. We look at the game. I'm going to be honest, I have kind of spaced out on what happened in this game. Just going to fast forward a little bit. It's like Viego pathing away from top, and then they find the dive with the prio through mid. They dive bot. Galio's just participating. I just want to look at what happened mid because Annie didn't manage to find a base. So somehow Annie, right now Annie pushed mid, and then I don't know what the fuck she did. Very confusing. It's like right now Annie didn't base. What is she doing? She's sitting for platings. And just the fact that she didn't base and she wasn't first on midwave again, she didn't get TP advantage. She didn't TP on the wave to have prio on the next play. Galio TP's back after making a play on top and then crossing into bottom side, having another play because Annie refused to base. Disaster. Disaster, plain and simple. Even though Kindred is the strong one in this game, she definitely is a champion that opens up room for mistakes. It's not super easy to execute on Kindred because she's very squishy, right? Doesn't matter how fat she is. Oh, I'm yawning. I think I've used my voice way too much today, guys. Forgive me for the scuffed MSI recap. This game has completely it's out of my mind. So we're just seeing more. O's offered more. You know that O's got smashed by PCS. I think Chiefs went 3-1 and Bliss just got 3-0'd. So that's not true, my friend. Oath is just as much a wild card as everybody else. I believe, like, if you wanted to improve the format, I think just let the major regions have direct slots and let the minor regions fight over one slot. Like, I think it would be cooler. Would you say PCS is a major region? I think it's close, yeah. Why there's no OSA at MSI? Because they are merged with PCS. They are merged with PCS. They are just too small of a region. So they merged together with PCS. Their qualification to MSI, they play the PCS playoffs. They get a seed in the PCS playoffs. When I saw this Galio build, I was like, damn, there's actually hope here for Blue Side to win the game. Actual hope. I think this is an example of what I mentioned about Bong. This seems to be so common. It's like, in terms of knowing how to play a tank, it's like, for example, Ozzy, he's not paying attention here to his 4. He should never look for this Q. He should be backing off already, right? He needs to be in tune. It needs to be like a rubber band, right? Only let yourself take damage in situations where your teammates can deal damage. Here, the Nautilus ult is placed poorly, and once again, same thing, right? It's like, Zeri right now needs to hit these fine folk. So it's way better to just hold the Malphite ult, hold the Nautilus ult, let Zeri stack and hit, maybe Q the Galio, play time here and play front to back. It's much better. But because here, Malphite's ulting, but who the fuck is he ulting for, right? Who is he creating space for? Nobody. They cannot cross this space right now. You see, everyone's kiting back, they're kiting back because they know they can hit Malphite for free. But then again, Ozzy is doing the same shit. He's pushing forward what is not necessary. He can be kiting and holding his spells and still have an influence over this zone. Like, I was doing this shit back in Season 2 and Season 3 when I was a player, guys. Like, I knew how to build space, I knew how to tag in and out, and I knew how to make sure that I always create circumstances that if I'm taking damage, it is for a damn good reason. But this is something just in MSI group stage here. The play-ins is just has been atrocious. The level of play around this has been atrocious. Very, very bad. I think like Licorice and like BB didn't play tanks, right? So like Poppy, he played well against, I guess, but he was so fed in that game. So, but this is something that I saw. At least I can for sure say when it comes to all of the minor regions that they really struggle with this in terms of how they play for the AD carries. And it's such an essential thing, especially when like a team like Loud, their AD carry is by far their best player. It's not even close. Like, it's not close at all. I think Croc is a bit of an inter. I think Tinones and Robo, they are just not, they don't bring any fire, you know? They don't bring any fire, no excitement in terms of what they play, in terms of how they lane, in terms of how mechanically they execute. Very uninteresting, you know? What I do like about Loud though is that at least, you know, when they fight, they do it together. And I think that's what has gotten them to this point. How good Root is and their ability to fight, just commit to ideas as a group. Because that's why I lost to Loud. They were very, very good at committing to ideas and we sucked at it. We were very, very bad. We had strong individual players, but that didn't get to matter because we, in that game, we were not playing as one. But I think this is a very important lesson for Loud in terms of how they draft, They need to make sure that the bottom lane conditions are much better. Much better. That's when they had success. When Root is, you know, set up for success, this team looks a lot better. They need to understand, you know, this is the head honcho. They need to protect him. They need to love him. They need to fight around him. And also in the preparation and in the draft, you need to make sure that he pops off. No, this is not Princess Jungle. Croc has been, this is his second year in Loud, I believe. Now the gold disparity is just a little bit too high, and the Aphelios damage is a little bit too big. So you get a lot more leeway in terms of, you know, how crazy you get to be in fights. And PSG went out. In regards for tomorrow's matchup, I think it's very, like, I think the most important aspect here for Golden Guardians is that they need to find ways to stabilize bots. I think their 3v3 mid is sharper. I think that Yubao is a very strong supportive player and he can make Junja shine. But I think that Gori and River, they have a better symbiosis to each other. I feel like they can both be the spear and both be the shield. Like, let's say a Maokai sets up a Jace for success. Let's say a Galio sets up the Kindred for success. These are two very different roles, right? And I think that Golden Guardians can play both for each other. I think Yubao has been good when he's playing the Galio and the Lissandra and he's setting up Junja for success. I think that there is no way in hell that they can let Wako play Aphelios. They need to fucking ban Aphelios. Please, don't let this guy play Aphelios. He's so damn good at it. Explore what is hiding behind the door. We can pull up here. Let's just check it together. PSG Talon, Season 13. So banned against Lucian. Banned against him is often Lucian. So that's something to maybe keep track of. He plays a lot of Lucian. But his Aphelios is so fucking dangerous. You need to remove this Aphelios. There's no way you want to play against this Aphelios. Because on top of that, like their AD likes to play, their super likes to play Thresh. They like to and also you can match and pair Aphelios with anything. You know, test him here, hit him hard here. And I think that you should, the main thing to consider here, right, is what answer do you want to play into Lucian Nami? Or do you want to play the Lulu lane? Probably not. Maybe look to play YamatoCannon into the Lucian Nami, or just play like Jinx X into Lucian Nami. Because I think that you can go so far to maybe even ban Lucian and Aphelios. I don't know. I'm gonna get copyright struck. Man. I hope I get copyright struck. So what I would want to target is just deny Wako. Deny Wako. Look for first pick of Vi. Look for first pick Cannon and enjoy yourself. You know? I think that Lucian Aphelios are very good bans to target. And see how they react from there. I think that in the end, I think Golden Guardians is slightly favored here because I believe more in their ability to execute together as a team, to pull the trigger when they have opportunities. I like the fact that Golden Guardians doesn't hesitate. I think that Licorice has had a better performance than their respective top laner. I think that Gori has played better than Yubao. I think the key to victory for PSG is going to be Junja and Wako. I am curious what side to himself Wako is going to be able to reveal when Lucian and Aphelios gets target banned. Because looking at this draft structure as an example, right? It's like Golden Guardians won't need to ban Vi, won't need to ban Cannon. So I I haven't seen things exciting enough from the solo laners of PSG, and I think the top side has been very sharp. And I think that PSG have room to invest bans into, of course, the bot lane. Score prediction, I think like 3-1 Golden Guardians PSG. I think that the fact that Golden Guardians has room to invest bans into bot lane is going to be the decisive part of this. Because as you can see, Lowland Lions, they're banning Lucian, Vi, Cannon. These are champions that you first pick. Is Waco's Caitlyn any good? I'm assuming it is, but Caitlyn is not a champ right now. So all good, all good. I think Golden Guardians 3-1 is my prediction. All right. Tomorrow we're going to do the group draw show. Probably going to just react to it. And after that, we will make a rundown and predictions of the matchups. And that will be like, the next juicy thing. If you made it all the way to this part of the video on YouTube, bless you and bless your face. I'll catch you guys on the flibbity flobbity flap.